This is Geometry Section 3.2, Use Parallel Lines and Transversals. So in 3.1 we talked about corresponding angles, alternate exterior and alternate interior angles, and consecutive interior angles. Now if the lines are parallel, okay, with the transversal, some special things happen with those type of angles. So the first one, if we have two parallel lines, okay, so they're parallel, cut by a transversal, then the corresponding angles are congruent. So I just put numbers in one set of corresponding angles, but all corresponding angles would be congruent. So in this picture, angle 1 would be congruent to angle 2. Again, that's only if these two lines are parallel. Consecutive interior angles, so remember those are between the lines, and consecutive means right next to each other. Okay, again, if those lines are parallel, consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Remember, that means they add up to 180. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180 degrees. That's the only one that's 180. The rest of them actually end up being congruent. So alternate interior angles theorem again says if I have two lines that are parallel with a transversal, alternate interior, so between the lines on opposite sides of my transversal, those angles are going to be congruent. Same with alternate exterior angles. Okay, if my lines are parallel, my angles that are alternating exterior are also congruent. So all the angle types when the lines are parallel are congruent, except for those consecutive interior, those ones right next to each other inside, those are supplementary, which means they add to 180. So because of that, okay, if we have one angle measure, we'll find the rest, and we'll see an example like that. But first, let's prove that the alternate interiors angle theorem works. So we can't use that in our proof because we're trying to prove it. But you could do a similar proof for all of those theorems that we learned in the previous slides. So we're just going to prove one of these. So line P is parallel to line Q. Okay, so we're trying to prove 1 and 2 are congruent. So they gave us this third angle in this picture. We're probably going to have to use that. So first step again is write down the given. So P is parallel to Q. Okay, angle 2 and angle 3 we know are congruent from chapter 2. Those, when they're right across from each other, those are vertical angles. We also know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 because if you look, this is the bottom left of this grouping and this is the bottom left of this grouping. So those are corresponding angles. And so since both these right sides are angle 3, that means the left sides are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And that would be the transitive property with lines 2 and 3. Okay, so the alternate interior angles theorem we could have used if we weren't trying to prove it. Angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent because they're alternate interior angles. So all of those theorems that we learned here, okay, alternate interior angles theorem, alternate exterior angles theorem, consecutive interior angles, and then the corresponding angles, you can use those in a proof now. Alright, so let's use the properties of our lines to find all of the angles. So identifying angles congruent to 120. So we actually No, angle 4 is 120 because that's vertical with the 120. Okay. 5 is going to be 120 because 5 and this 120 are corresponding angles. The 120 is in the top left of this group, and the 5 is in the top left of that group. Okay, and then 8 would be 120 as well because these are vertical, or it's corresponding with 4. Now, if it asks you to find the measure of angle 2, 3, 7, and 6, which are all equal as well, you could do that. Remember, angles right next to each other add up to 180. So if it had asked for that, 180 minus 120 means that this is 60. So then this would be 60, and these ones would be 60 as well. So all of the angles are either 60 or 120 in this picture. So once you know one angle, you could find the rest. All right, let's look at this one. They give us this random angle 4. That doesn't mean it's 4 degrees. That's angle 4. Angle 4 is actually 115 because those are vertical angles. So we're going to put that right here. Let me switch colors so it's easier to read. Okay, now these two angles are right next to each other on the same side, so those are consecutive interior angles. Now remember, consecutive interior angles add up to 180. So you have x plus 5 and 115. Those add up to 180 degrees, and we need to find x. So that would be x plus 120. This 5 plus 115. Subtract the 120 from both sides, and we get 60. Okay, and that is all there is to it. So yeah, using our angles, they're either equal or add up to 180. Remember, all corresponding alternate exterior, alternate interior are all congruent, but the consecutive interior, like this is last problem, add up to 180 degrees.